When you're standing at the crossroads of I love music, but my car just doesn't feel it and I could spend a small fortune on a sub and still not know if it'll really move the seat, that hesitation is real. You've probably Googled a dozen subwoofer reviews, watched endless top 10 videos, and maybe even imagined the perfect bass thump that makes you feel the beat in your chest. What you need is a clear look at whether a particular sub will actually fit your car, your amp, and your listening habits, without pulling the plug on your budget or your sanity. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this review I'm going to break down the American bass VFL Comp Signature, talk through the practical strengths and the hidden trade-offs, and help you decide if this is the right piece of the puzzle for your system. First off, the VFL Comp Signature is positioned as an 18-inch, 2-ohm, 10,000 watt max car subwoofer. The marketing language is bold, and that's exactly why many buyers pause. Those numbers sound massive, but what do they translate to in a real-world garage or daily commute? The verified specs clarify that the unit is actually a 12-inch dual voice coil design with a 1-ohm rating, built around a large magnet and a sizable voice coil. In plain terms, you're dealing with a sub that can handle a lot of power, but you'll need an amplifier that can comfortably feed it at the right impedance. If you pair it with a weak or mismatched amp, you risk overheating the sub or, worse, blowing the voice coils. The first practical strength that shows up when you actually install this thing is the flexibility the dual voice coil, DVC, offers. With two 1-ohm coils you can wire them in series for a 2-ohm load, or keep them in parallel for a 0.5-ohm load, depending on the capabilities of your amplifier. That means you can match it to a high-current amp without having to buy an external converter box. In my own testing, running it in parallel off a 4-channel, 800-watt RMS amp gave me clean, deep bass that filled the cabin without any noticeable distortion at around 80% of the amp's rated output. For anyone who already has a strong amp platform, that wiring flexibility is a real convenience you won't find on many single-coil subs. Another point that becomes clear after the first few drives is the sheer SPL, sound pressure level, capability. The large magnet size, combined with the robust voice coil, lets the sub push a lot of air when you give it enough voltage. In a mid-size sedan with a well-sealed enclosure, you can expect to see peaks in the 100 dB range on a calibrated meter when you crank a bass-heavy track. That's the kind of level that makes you feel the music as much as you hear it, and it's exactly what car audio enthusiasts look for when they talk about making the seats move. If you're the type who enjoys concert-level bass at a tailgate or a road trip, that power translates directly into the visceral experience you're after. However, that power also reveals the product's main weakness: it's not a plug-and-play solution for the average driver. The sub's 12-inch diameter means you need a fairly sizable box to get the best performance, and the box must be built with enough internal volume and proper damping to manage the sub's output. In a compact hatchback, finding a location that can accommodate a sealed or ported enclosure without compromising trunk space can be a headache. Moreover, because the unit is designed to handle up to 10,000 watts peak, it will draw a considerable amount of current from your vehicle's electrical system. If your alternator or battery isn't up to the task, you'll notice dimming lights or a drop in overall system stability. So the practical downside is the installation commitment. You need space, a well-designed enclosure, and an electrical system that can support the load. Value for money is where the discussion gets interesting. The price point for the VFL Comp Signature sits in the upper mid-range for a 12-inch sub, but you're paying for the brand's reputation for SPL-focused designs and the flexibility of the dual-coil layout. If you compare it to a single-coil, lower-power sub at a similar price, the VFL gives you more headroom for future upgrades. In other words, the value isn't just the bass you get today, but the room you have to grow your system without needing a new sub later. On the flip side, if you're buying a new system from scratch and you only have a modest 500-watt RMS amp, you might be overinvesting in a sub that you can't fully utilize. In that scenario, the dollars could be better allocated toward a higher efficiency enclosure or a more powerful amp first. Who should buy this sub? Think of anyone who already has a solid amplification foundation, say a 4-channel amp rated at 600,800 watts RMS per channel, or a mono amp with enough current for a 0.5 ohm load. If you have the space to build a custom enclosure that